Katriona O'Sullivan.
Yes.
It's an honour to have you here on the Modern Warrior podcast.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's a privilege to be here.
It's been a while coming because I know you've been a very, very busy lady.
Yeah.
With the publication of your new book, Per.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is it still new? It's over a year now?
Yeah, it's nearly a year. It'll be a year next week, so it's not new. It still feels new though. Yeah,
for sure. Because you keep having to
talk about it,
over and over again. And in my opinion, rightly so, because it's such an incredible story. And it's now 50 weeks in the top 10?
10, yeah.
In Ireland?
It was number 2 yesterday, yeah. Number 1 last week, yeah. I had like 40 weeks, I think, at number 1 and the rest in the top 5 or 10. Yeah, it's mad.
Unreal.
It's amazing, but it's great. It just goes to show there's an appetite for my story and that people care, which is so nice to have. And then it came out in the UK last week and it's doing really well over there as well, which is, it's lovely.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I think you're filling a void there in this country.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think, deciding to write my story was a really hard decision to make because obviously I've had a hard life, but also think that I think it's important that people understand that firstly, poor people are really talented and have so much potential. And also there are things that we can do to help, to save people from the destiny that poverty often sets for them. And so, yeah, it's really nice so I think people have an appetite for understanding how to empower people and to make life easier for them. And then some people just like to look at the life that maybe they didn't have and go, wow, that's sad, or wow, she's amazing. Just, the amount of people that say, you're so brave or you're so inspiring. That's nice, but it's. So yeah, there's a mixture of people who want to read it, but it's good.
Yeah. It must have been very difficult for you to write that book because having read it myself, you go right back to your earliest memories and you sort of, that's the foundation for your story, and you bring it to the point where you're graduated from Trinity with a PhD and a lecturer in Maynooth and married with kids.
Happy,
yes. And for me, even reading parts of the book were challenging. So I can't imagine how difficult it could have been for you to go back and then write about it, but not only write about it, you have to revisit all those experiences.
Yeah.
As you write about it. What was that like?
So I have been in therapy for a long time, and I was in therapy a few years ago as well. I wouldn't recommend writing a memoir or a biography if you've been through trauma, particularly if you haven't had some support. It can be therapeutic to do it without publishing it. I think we all should know the narrative of our own life and understand why we are the people that we are. I think there's something empowering about that. For me, just for anybody who doesn't know my story, I grew up with 2 heroin addict parents in a community that was destroyed by poverty. In the UK, actually, I was born, but we were an Irish family in the UK. And then, so there was addiction and then crime and violence and abuse in terms of all types of abuse in my childhood. So, I got pregnant at 15, was made homeless, the really, really stark 2-pack type of life. But yeah, so writing it was hard, but also there was something really empowering about actually putting it all together and like seeing how that little girl who was really hurt and afraid and let down by her family, but also the world around her, has gone from there to actually being this really wonderfully happy, loving human being who still struggles because I'm not completely healed. I don't know if you ever escape trauma fully, but there's been something lovely about that. But there were harrowing moments of writing it. I went to Avoca in Dunboyne because I'm middle class now, and I sat in the same spot every Saturday and wrote the book. And some weeks I'd be laughing because there's fun in there as well and crack. And then some weeks I'd be crying my eyes out. And some of the tears actually came from the happy stories, not even the sad ones. was, remembering the love and the light that was in my community, in my home, and the teachers who cared about me. So long answer, but yeah, it was hard, but also really great.
Was there a chapter in particular that was very, very difficult to write about, and maybe perhaps one that you considered not putting in there because of the harrowing details of it?
Yeah, I think so. My mum was a heroin addict. So was my dad. And my dad went to prison. And when my dad was in prison, I was like age 6 or 7, and we were taken into care. And there was a lot of trauma within that 2 years of my childhood, particularly like my mum was a prostitute and I witnessed that. And I also experienced abuse as a child. And I don't want to get into it too heavy because, people listening, 1 in 4 Irish people have experienced abuse as a child. That's a stat and a fact. And like to hear me talking openly might be triggering for people.
You talking about sexual abuse?
Yeah.
1 in 4? 1
in 4. Yeah, that's why the charity is called 1 in 4. Because 1 in 4 people. And then if you go worldwide, it's actually 1 in 4.5 people. So like we've a lot of it here and we've a lot of it in the world. But writing that bit, it wasn't the actual writing of what happened to me. Obviously that was painful. But it was more so I was really scared that people wouldn't understand my mum and that people would feel angry towards her or would judge her for her mental illness, which was addiction, And so there was fear in me that people would be harsh on the people that I love, like my mum and dad. And so there were times where, and also you've read my book, so I insisted when I wrote it that I was going to be completely straight about what happened to me. Like I wasn't going to, tie it up and hide things. I wanted to say the words rape. I wanted to say the words abuse. I wanted to say the words prostitution, addiction. Like I wanted it to be stark as well. Not for shock, but just so people can really feel what that life is like. And so there was times after I'd finished writing it, there was a 6-month gap before it comes out where I'd be like, oh shit, I need to take that out. Like, why did I put that in? But I actually read my every chapter in therapy before it came out. So I was completely okay with everything. And I also had this mindset that I don't have to release it all the way right to the last day. I could stop if I wanted to, which kind of helped me with the anxiety around what would the response be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do talk about obviously your mum and your dad a lot there in the book. And, if the book had characters, let's say, you were the main role and they were, second, the second actor and actress there as part of your life.
Our parents are though,
Yeah.
I'm a psychologist, so like that's what I studied. I'm a doctor of psychology. Like our parents are the main actors in our lives. Like they are the people that influence and shape our identity, who we are, what we value, but more importantly than anything else, how we actually feel about ourselves. And if we have parents that are, so Tilly and Tony, that's my parents' names, they were the biggest characters in my life. They still are, despite the fact that they're dead, that they are the foundation they are the start for all of us. So like the love, and it doesn't have to be our biological parents as well. Whoever we experience as a caregiver early on lays the foundation for how we feel about ourselves as adults and as young people. And so in my case, they were the main characters in my life, still are. And unfortunately, both of them had a mental illness. Like addiction is a mental illness. One of the hardest things that I think I've had to navigate as a human is getting people to trying to understand that addiction isn't a moral dilemma. Like my parents were really unhappy people, and they had 5 children, and that unhappiness was inflicted on all of us because of their mental health difficulty, not because they were like bad people who made fucked up choices. They did make up fucked up choices, but that was because of their mental health difficulty, not because they were morally bad,
Yeah, there's a part at the end of the book there where you talk about your mother in particular, where I think you realised that she had a mental health illness and she was using the drugs as her form of medication or or therapy almost. And then when she came off the drugs, the mental health difficulty was too intense for her. And then, so this created the continual relapses.
Yeah, definitely. Like in psychology, there's this model called the self-medication model. They try to explain why people get addicted, you know, and it's complex. I did my PhD in it. It's complex, and not everybody's the same. But in my mum's case, in my ma's case, what happened? She had her, and this happens a lot in addiction, especially females. Actually, she did so much bad stuff that when she would awaken and try and get clean, she could see the carnage of what she'd done, and the guilt and shame, I think, drove her back to being oblivious, because oblivion was so much easier to live with. And the consequences of that oblivion, which was car crashes and in the end death, was easier for her to live with than being awake to the consequences of her addiction. And so if I'd have written this book 10 years before, it would have been much angrier, and there'd been less compassion towards my mother and less, I suppose, care for her, because healing is a journey of actually, you know, forgiveness is a journey and a choice, but also there's a journey of forgiveness that I've been on and understanding around my mum. And that particular incident that you're talking about, I'll never forget. I was sitting in my office listening to Eminem. I love rap music. And there's a song called Headlights where he talks about his mum and realizing that she's going to die soon. And he has this forgiving moment in the song. And I just had this real strong desire to talk to my mum. I knew she was going to die soon. So I rang her and I said, hi, Mum. And she'd always be very defensive when I ring her, because I was the controlling daughter. Like, are you drunk? You know, trying to stop her from hurting me. So she'd be defensive, and she answered the phone. She'd be on guard. And I rang her one day and I said, can I talk to you for a minute? And she kind of could feel that I was softer. And she said, yeah, of course. And I said, did you ever love me? And she was like, oh, yes, my Katrina, like, I loved you so much. I just love drugs more. And like, that gave me a lot of relief. And also, people listening might not understand that, but I always knew that. You know, I always knew that there was something ahead of me in her life, and that was her addiction that blocked her capability for loving me. When she said she loved drugs, I think she was talking about that she was an addict, and it stopped her from actually expressing it. And that moment kind of broke things. I never tried to control her after that. We had a really good year or so of like me just kind of letting her be the wonderful mad addict that she was, and staying out of her way when she was on a bender, and then being there when she needed it or she was capable of accepting it.
Mm-hmm. You talk about, the regrets that she may have had due to her failures as a mother and the consequences of her addiction and how it's impacted you and your siblings. What's it like for you? Because you were pregnant at 15 and by no means healed, and you were still right in the middle of that carnage. Your life was absolute chaos. You got kicked out of your home.
Yeah.
You were homeless. And you went through years then of trying to figure things out and try to be there as the best mum possible. And you got there in the end. But when you look back at those years in your own life, is there any regret that you have towards?
Yeah. It's funny, you know, because, you know, I have a 30-year-old son who he is probably the first person I ever truly loved. But, you know, trauma and addiction and growing up the way I did, like it's like a shadow that lives within you. That so like I got to understand my own mum more so when I became a mum, because my intention was always to be a good mum, as most people is, and always to do the best for my child. But internally there was so much other stuff driving me than that intention. I actually think choice is a myth, and it's inflicted on poor people by those who do have choice, the privileged people. And in my case, while I'd wake up and say, I'm going to be a good mum, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, the mental health difficulties that I had as a consequence of my childhood and the trauma that I'd experienced made it very difficult for me to be the person I wanted to be. And so I do always have regret when me and my son talk about this, you know, he knows that I am sorry, and he is sorry too, that I wasn't the mother that I should have been in them early years. But around that feeling is also a very reflective, caring adult, which is me as well, that says, you know, I did my very, very best with the hands that I was, the hand that I was played. And I know that as well for my own mother. There's nothing more eye-opening. So when we judge our parents, we judge them. You didn't do this. You didn't come to the game. You didn't give me this. You taught me this. There's nothing more eye-opening than having your own kids and recognizing how hard it is to be a good, honest, loving parent, especially if you have mental health difficulties or if you have challenges in how you feel about yourself or addiction issues or whatever. There's nothing more eye-opening. And I think, you know, I can't forgive myself unless I forgive her. I can't forgive my dad either unless I forgive myself. And so, yeah, there's regrets. Like, I'd love it. I wish my son had been born like my other two sons, which was within a loving home and with well parents who were in a healing journey and were learning about how to parent in a loving way. But he didn't get that originally. But he has a lot now. And so when John was 4 or 5, like, that's when I suppose my journey began in recovery. And he has a bit of fire in his belly, which comes from sometimes adversity, which we talk about. You know, I'm kind of proud of that in him. He's a bit of street in him. The other two are a bit softer, which is nice, but John's a bit of a fighter, which is great. And probably not all kids need that. But I mean, at the end of the day, we have to also say some of my skills come from the hardship that I've been through. So yeah, there's regret. There's always regret. Mm-hmm. He deserved better. I deserved better. But there's also forgiveness.
Yeah. Within all of that, you seem to have been the person trying to hold it all together, though. I mean, your parents are absolutely crumbling. Yeah. You've got this baby then as well that you're trying to hold on to, and you're trying to save everyone else, and then you're the one drowning in the water, so to speak. And you did eventually go under and found yourself in a process of absolute chaos and carnage for a number of years. And can you talk to us about what that was like for you in terms of the process after John was taken from you by your dad to go to Ireland? And this ultimately seemed to become a bit of a dark place for you in your life.
Yeah, I think, you know what, losing hope has been the hardest piece of my whole life. So even as a child, in all the darkness that was surrounding me, in my family home, with my parents' addiction, with how hard it was in school, I was a real dreamer, a real believer. There was something innate in me that thought, the world is good, it will get better, it will keep fighting. I think I got that from books and stories and films and music. So there was always like a hope in me. And then when I got pregnant with John and I went to the hostel, nobody ever visited me. It was so lonely, 18 months alone, and I gave birth to my son. It was traumatic. And then I was in this, there was like two sides of me competing always. Be good, live right, be good, do better, don't be them. And then there was this other darker piece of me that was like, this is so hard. And when my son's dad left, and we were trying, you know, it wasn't the ideal relationship, we tried. But when he left and I was on my own, I just said, fuck it. I remember just leaning in to the life. Like I couldn't fight anymore. And I loved drugs. I loved alcohol. It was like, I loved anything that took me away from the misery and the pain and the hard graft of having to get up every day and try. And there was a part of me that just said, you know what, fuck it. And for about 3 years, I'd say 2 to 3 years, I chased oblivion. And I got it, like, you know, raves and drugs and drink. And you know, my little boy was just, he was just left in some ways, you know, like I tried, you know, and there was times where I wasn't in that, but genuinely, I remember there was no hope at that point. And luckily my dad had got sober. He'd moved to Ireland. He was on a warrant in the UK and he'd legged it. And he'd got sober miraculously. He'd found AA in Ireland, you know. And he came to England and saw me in this mess. And he couldn't believe it, you know, because I had been the one to be trying to keep everybody together. And I was just destroyed, lent in, no hope whatsoever. And he took John. And I was happy that he was in Ireland. Like, I was kind of like, whew, I don't have to deal with that guilt. But also, you know, within my, I don't know why, there is a spirit in me. There is something in me that wants better, you know, that wants to live a good life. And I came to Ireland to visit my dad and just was like, this is where the hope is. I always loved Ireland, you know. We always came as kids and I always felt Irish, you know. We are Irish, but, you know, even though I've got this weird accent. And so when I came to Ireland, my dad was sober and there was this peace in the house. I was like, I want this. But them couple of years were horrific, you know, and I would have gone into treatment. You know, I did a treatment centre for addiction and food addiction and bulimia and lots of low self-esteem stuff. And I'm always kind of reticent to say I'm an addict, you know, because the label sometimes I always wonder, is it trauma-based? You know, is the complication? But the truth is this, you know, I can't drink alcohol, I can't engage in drug taking. Like, I have this animal thing inside of me that, like, just is excessive. You know, I go to college to do a year and end up with a fucking PhD 9 years later. Like, this is an excessive person in there. But that was one of the hardest times, and it was the hopelessness that was the hardest thing to live with. I think having no hope as a human being is the hardest place for anybody to be. And you can be surrounded by things. You can have the best house, you can have the best car, a lovely wife or lovely kids, but to be hopeless inside and feel worthless is horrific. And that was the propeller for me for change. And I was so lucky to be in Ireland in the early 2000s because there was all this investment then. So, like, treatment was free and therapy was free. There was no waiting lists. Like, now, like, you can't even access a service if your mental health is if it is in difficulty.
Yeah. And that's where you began to find the hope again?
Yeah, like, I mean, it doesn't come immediately. Like, recovery, you know, healing is hard. Recovery is hard. Change is hard.
Yeah, because you had plenty of relapses.
Plenty. Well, I had one big relapse.
Yeah.
I had plenty of relapses in lots of different ways, but not drugs and drink related. I had one big relapse after about 1.5 years after being in treatment. But I felt like maybe I wasn't one of them people. Maybe I could drink wine. This was the delusion. I never drank wine. Maybe I could drink wine. And now I can't fucking drink wine. It's like, get straight to the shittiest, darkest, dingiest pub in Ireland, and that's where you belong. That's what I would have. That's my way of using it would have been. But I had lots of struggles because, like, once you take away the thing that you're addicted to, then the real stuff comes up. You know what I mean? Like, then the self-esteem, the feeling like you're not lovable, the feeling like, you know, the consciousness of your past, all of that then, all of the icky feeling that I would have lived with my whole childhood comes back in abundance then. Because not only have I got my childhood stuff, but I've also got the few years of, like, being a bad mother and not having a job and robbing people and lying and cheating and crime, all that stuff. And so, yeah, like, recovery at the start is fucking hard, like. But I was lucky that there's great people that are so willing to give their time to you when you want to change your life. I lived in a community in Dublin 1 that were just fucking great. Like, you know, poor communities, poor people, we're so judged and vilified and made out to be like uneducated, and like, give me a good townie any day over fucking, you know, a middle class idiot who has no idea about like what drives behavior and what drives people. So like, I was lucky I was in that community, and there was loads of people clean and sober and trying to change their lives. There's loads of it now. Like, I don't know if there's more now, because I see it on Instagram, you know, sea swimmers and all this stuff. But back then I was really minded by a few great people that kind of helped me like learn how to live a different life. But therapy was the most important thing for me. Like, actually getting a therapist and staying and seeing her for a long time, that was like the game changer for me.
You have this unique perspective, I feel, having come from a life of poverty and being poor. And, you know, you've taken that from England and you moved to Ireland, and you have your difficulties here, although it was a little bit better, but still difficult. And, you know, for me, for example, or for any of us, how I experience the world would be completely different to how a blind man would experience the world. How you experience the world would be very different to how I would experience the world, because I don't come from a background of poverty or neglect. So how do you feel that lens has served you?
I think it gives me, I think there's a couple of things it gives me. I don't think you have to have been poor to care. You know, I don't think you have to have been through adversity to understand adversity. You know, I think my privilege in life is that I've not only lived through that life, but I've also become educated and understand, I suppose, society in a different way through my education. So I've been able to look back at it. I think, you know, the unique perspective, I suppose, that it gives me if we wanted to compare ourselves in some ways, that like I understand how to survive the darkest of things that come from my life. You might have it in a different way, but I understand also what it's like to not be fed, you know, and how that feels, and to be hungry for a hug, and to be hungry for recognition and an opportunity. And as an adult, that gives me the capacity to connect with people like me and actually say, you know, I know what you feel. But also in my case, one of the things that I would have observed as I moved out of that community and into education and to more, you know, privileged communities is we tell people all the time that you can change your own life, that you can do better, pull up your socks, work harder. That's a lie. Like, there was no amount of work that I could have put in to change my own life as a child. Absolutely nothing I could have done. I couldn't have got an education any better than the one I got. There was no power in me to change my destiny. The power was in society and the structures and the opportunities that were inflicted or given to us as poor people. And they were not very good. And so, like, I understand that in a way that I suppose other people don't, because when the conditions were correct for me, when I was given support, mental health, access to mental health services, free housing, welfare that was consistent, free education, and role models within that to identify with, I actually was able to perform exactly the same as everybody else, if not exactly the same, better than everybody else, because I still had all this shit. And I was a first-class student. Like, I got a top of the class in Trinity College, like, first. So, like, my perspective is, you know, that we lie to kids like me all the time by saying to them, you just work hard in school and you can do better. Your life will be good. And the truth is, that's not true. That's not true. Like, you know, you can't escape poverty just through hard work. You can't actually get great grades if you've got 35 kids in your class and teachers who are dealing with emotional difficulties more than academic difficulties. So there's my kind of perspective on the difference that I see and bring to my life.
Because you also had a number of teachers in your early life that had a great influence.
Yes.
And then you had other teachers that had a very negative influence on your life.
Yeah. And my book is about that, you know. It's about, it's a thank you, you know, to the people.
And a fuck you to some people.
Yeah. It's a call for change, fuck you as well to some. But like, it is a call to action. It is me saying, look, these wonderful adults intervened in my life and made me feel like I was a valuable person when my parents weren't capable of doing that. And like, if we did that a bit more often and we funded things like this and made it easier for teachers or youth workers or therapists or educators to do this, then there'd be more of me. Because like, I'm not that special. Like, I am special. We're all special. But like, there's 10 girls like me who lived on my road. Like, they'd buy and sell you a bit of crack, good looking, you know, vivacious, outgoing. There was loads of us. And there's only one of me, really. My story's so big and out there because it's rare what I did. And
it shouldn't be.
No. And that's, you know, so yeah, the teachers piece, I it's a thank you to them. But my story is about me saying this is how I was saved. Because Miss Arkinson, when I was 5, changed my underwear every day, gave me breakfast and popped me on her knee and gave me a hug instead of trying to shove books down my throat and force me to cuteness, you know, fingers on lips. You know, or Mr. Pickering, when I was 15 or 14, told me every single day I had a gift for English and that I could be and do. And then there was the youth worker and all these like stepping stones, or I like to use the analogy of a light. You know, I think that every person that I meet, I have the potential to light them up and to leave them with a bit of light. And in my life, I had these adults who actually placed lights inside of me that guided me through the darkness and eventually helped me be the amazing, talented woman that I am. And my book is that story. Like, some people read it and see the neglect, and that's there too. But most people read it and see the triumph and the support and the celebration of that.
The power of
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I mean the power of people, yes, in the positive way, but then the power of people in a negative way as well.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about the other teacher that you had the year after in school, or maybe it was the year after yours. You had Miss Arkinson.
Yes. Miss Cows.
And Miss, yeah.
I don't say her name. That's not her real name, by the way. I'd love to say it, but yeah. But
you call her something else. So there's those that light you up, but then there's also those who dim that light as well. And so how do you kind of navigate that when you go through a process and, you know, identify that in the book? Your first year in school, amazing teachers that really helped you out,
and then
like, incredibly positive influence, and then you go to the other side and it's dark and it's shame and it's insult.
The mad thing is, you know, if I said to you, do you remember a good teacher from school? What's their name?
Deirdre.
Do you remember a bad teacher?
Yes.
What's their name? You don't have to.
Yeah.
But you remember a bad teacher.
I remember a bad teacher too,
yeah. So like, we all have good teachers, but we all have bad teachers. I actually, my friend I spoke to recently, I said, do you remember a good teacher? And he said no. And I was really sad that he couldn't remember one good teacher, which obviously is an experience for some people. I think especially prior to my generation, when there was so much Catholicism in the schools. But most of us remember having good or bad teachers. But the thing is, when you're a poor kid and you're not getting enough love and care at home, you shouldn't be experiencing that in school as well. Like, in my view, you know, in communities where there's the most disadvantaged, it's imperative that every single teacher cares. Like, I'm a middle class mum now. You know, I'm in a WhatsApp group with the other mammies in the school. It's fucking gas. And they'd be like, oh, we're going to the Gale Talk this year, and whatever for the kids. It's great, But one year there was a message in the group where the mammies were like, oh, the maths teacher's not great this year. Is anybody else having difficulty with that? And another mum was like, oh yeah, like I'm really worried about, Garrett's maths performance this year because of it. And another man posts, I know a really good tutor, maybe we could arrange for them to have a tutor. And we're all like, yeah, let's do that. But when it's a poor kid, them WhatsApp groups are not happening. Like there's nobody to intervene when a teacher is bad. And like education can be lost forever for a child if they experience a horrible teacher or a teacher who doesn't see them as valuable. In my case, this teacher was, she used to scream in my face and ask me why I didn't have my pens. Like my parents used to smoke heroin, and they would use any tube in the house there was. So often our pens were burnt. So I never had pens. And I vividly remember actually her screaming in my face about having no pens and pencils, and looking up at her like this big woman. And I were thinking, I didn't eat. I didn't eat this morning. And not understanding why she didn't understand that. And also then being sent to the head teacher, Miss Lovely teacher, Miss Hooley. And Miss Hooley saying, don't mind her. Don't mind her. We know what she's like. But what that communicated to me is that they let this happen to us. Like the school accepts that there's abusive teachers in the school and they don't do anything. And as just a small kid, like you have like basic reasoning as a kid. Oh, this place is not safe then as well. So home's not safe and this place is not safe because this teacher's being mean to me. And that teacher is supposed to be good is letting that happen. And so like, I really believe like we definitely need to do better. Like we cannot afford to have bad teachers anywhere. But if a kid has a family that can buffer that, great. Like then maybe that's not so bad. Maybe that builds resilience. Who knows? But in the case like me or kids in disadvantaged communities right now, it's not okay for them to be experiencing bad educators or educators who treat them badly because they're poor, because they manifest their behavior is bad because of where they're coming from. And that's common. Yeah.
So you know safe space to go to. Where do you go from there?
You know where I went? I went into music. So like while what's mad you say that, it was horrific. Like my childhood was horrific. It was like a war zone. And there was particular periods where that was very concentrated. But there was also love. Like most of us who experience what I experienced or live in poor communities, there's loads of crack there as well, Like I loved my siblings. Like we made a life together, the best of it together. There was loads of fun days and fun nights but there was actually like a deep fracturing in me as a human being that I kind of was burdensome and I carried around with me all the time. But music and books, they were, I suppose, the places that I found my freedom. Like my dad gifted me with books, so I read all the time. I still read all the time. Like it's probably my favorite thing to do. But as a little girl, like that's where I found refuge, in books and music, and then in boys. Unfortunately, when I got older, that was the next place, which wasn't always good for me. But there was refuge.
You feel you were running away all your life from these unsafe places to potentially places where you felt it wasn't real? Like into a book, for example, you're indulging in fantasy or different story or different life. Into alcohol, then later on you're indulging in that's not reality. And drugs as well. So do you feel for a long time you've just been running away from that difficult past? That's
I think as a kid, like books gave me two things. Like there was hope. So in the stories that I was reading, I loved Roald Dahl, and I used to read I used to actually read this little Bible book we had. Like we couldn't afford books, so my mum would get stuff from a secondhand shop, or or I'd get them from school. And I remember I had a children's Bible. It was like Bible stories, but they were all so hopeful. You know, it wasn't like the penance ones that you lot had. You know, I wasn't. It wasn't inflicted on me in the same way.
You're also looking for hope, aren't you?
Yes, but as a little kid, so like I would read like the BFG or Matilda, and they had all these like great little kids who weren't in great situations who all of a sudden have great things happen. And so, there was hope in that. I don't know if there was always like a pathology behind it. I don't think everything was me trying to escape, but also like there was always hope in books. And I also loved stories. Like I loved the way stories were made and told, as an adult. Like it's funny you say that, because I always have this idea that within me, like there was a particular period of my childhood where I think I was like frozen in time. Like it was like there was a fracture. There was a fracturing of me as a child, and rather than running away from her or that feeling, I think I've been trying to find her my whole life and return to that moment.
Your 7-year-old self.
My 7-year-old self, and trying to, and like I obviously went in mad directions to try to ease her, like in ways that I shouldn't have, or I didn't know better. But in the last number of years, I like really working my way towards her and embracing, making her feel safe. And like that's deep, and some people might listen and go, whoa, what's she on about? But I think like that she's that I've been, there's a moment in time where I got stuck and really hurt, and I was never able to reach back. I'm nearly there now. It's nearly there. There's still dark days. There's still days where I'm like, oh my God, this is really hard. Life is hard. The burden can be tough. But I'm much more integrated and I have much more love for myself than I ever had. And I'm more able to stop and go, that's not where the answer is, Katriona. Like they're overwork isn't the thing. Success won't heal her. You don't need to get another grant in work or another best-selling book. But you know what I mean? So I don't think running away. I think I've been trying to find her.
Okay.
And like my earlier years of like searching for soothing in bad things was part of that. I think my mum was the same. We just did it, we just do it in the wrong way. We look outwards rather than looking inwards.
What are you trying to find in that 7-year-old girl that you felt you lost?
I think like, God, this is heavy, but like I was this little kid that just like had real freedom, especially in my own body. So like I would do like back bends and cartwheels, and my skirt would fall over my head and my knickers would show, and I wouldn't feel self-conscious or afraid of the world. I was brave and strong, and I think that's what I've been trying to get back to, is that feeling, that space,
Playfulness, joy?
Playfulness. And the playfulness bit is funny because yesterday I was at a conference and it was on trauma, and the funny thing is they were saying, this woman that I heard she was a phenomenal speaker, Joanna Fortune is her name. And she said she actually said that playfulness is the route to healing, that there is definite, ability to heal in playfulness. But yeah, I don't even think it is playfulness, but it's also just freedom in myself. Mm. And I am a free person. Like, I speak my mind, I'm open, but there is a self-consciousness that comes with being hurt, and there's a dislike. There was a dislike of my body and the way it failed me and has failed me over the years. That has been a real journey to try to heal.
Mm. Just to feel your body again,
yeah. And feel safe, feeling safe. One of the consequences of like growing up in a house like mine with the experiences that I had is like young kids, if they're not loved or they're not cared for in the way that they're programmed to be. Because like we're born innately with a desire to love and be loved. Like that's innate in us. It's not about food or survival. It's actually about connection. And if that connection doesn't happen, kids don't have the capacity to like reflect on the world and go, well, it's because of addiction and because of poverty and whatever. They only have their selves. And so it's quite normal for a small person who isn't in a safe place or isn't being loved the way they should or is experiencing violence or whatever it is to go, oh, it's something about me. And that was what I felt and thought, that these bad things were because I was bad. And that's normal. That's really normal to feel shame. And trauma brings that with it, particularly at whatever age you are, but particularly when you're small, because you don't have the reflective part of you that can say, well, it's to do with that, not to do with you. And so what happens is, what happened to me was to develop this idea that there was something wrong with me, something bad wrong with me. And that rhetoric becomes, and then what happens is you actually act in accordance with that. So you choose situations.
Because that feels safe to you, that's familiar.
But it reproduces it. Mm. And it's not a choice. You know, I want to be clear on that because I don't want anyone listening to feel like they're failing themselves. These things happen way outside of our control. And it takes a lot of therapy and a lot of healing to be able to stop that. And compassion is the start point of healing, like for yourself. But for me, that was like so trying to get back to that little girl and say, you didn't do anything. Like I have you. You know, I dedicate my book to myself, to my 7. I'm here, you know, but trying to get her and reach that point of like not feeling shame and not feeling like I did something wrong is the journey of my life, the biggest journey and the best journey actually, because I think healing is a wonderful gift that we don't always get. So if you're getting it, it's a privilege actually.
Yeah. What's your healing journey look like now? Where are you at?
So I'm still in therapy. So I do talk therapy, but we also do stuff like, but also not just in therapy. It's like outside of therapy is you can sit with a person and talk, and then you know fuck yourself over all week long, and then go back and give out about what you did the week before. In my case, it's about trying to listen and love myself and others a lot on a daily basis. Remind myself that I have limits and to respect them, to swim in the sea as much as I can, because I feel completely at one with the world when I'm in cold water in the sea. To meet people, to have people in my life actually who are good and that care, and like try and remove the ones that don't without judgment, but in a loving way if I can. To take care of my responsibilities, like, you know, pay my bills, not steal, you know, shit that harms you, like, you know, be honest and loving with my husband and true, love the kids. And
you find yourself still falling back towards default feelings and
not really
behaviors?
No, like it's not hard now to live that way. The things that are hard is if I have like a hard thing to say to somebody, or if somebody says something hard to me, or I'm faced with a situation that I'm nervous about, or I'm like, if I use an analogy of a building, you know, like the foundations of my building, of me, of myself, were cracked. There was cracks in them. And now, like, I've spent a lot of time fixing them and packing them. But like when the wind blows sometimes, you know, I can feel the shake. And so it's not like a conscious thing now where I have to like work hard to just live a good life, because I can do it quite easily now. But it's been 20 odd years, you know, of recovery and being sober and living this way. But there are times where I'm like, oh, I need to really mind myself at the moment. And they can be like, because I'm overstressed, I'm working too much. That's my problem now, is that I haven't got as much balance. And like all these great things are happening. Like honestly, like my life is fucking amazing. Like, and all of them opportunities are just fantastic. But it's like, where am I in the middle of that? You know, I need to mind my own self. And so I need to not let the building shake, because it can shake. And I heard a great thing yesterday from this talk as well, is that like, you don't ever untrauma. You know, trauma doesn't go away. You learn to build a scaffold around it and actually navigate, but understand your story. The story of how it got there is part of that. So I understand my story, and I feel compassion for myself and my parents, and I understand why things happen. But the fracture sometimes affects me, and I get a bit of a shake. And they're the days then when I have to like have a sea swim.
Yeah.
I'm going for one this afternoon.
Brilliant.
Because I'm aware this is emotional, and I know I'm going to feel. And I'm like, okay, on this day, I need to actually do something that restores the spirit and reminds me that I'm safe. So that's what I'm going to do today after this.
Yeah.
But it is a constant thing though.
Yeah. How do you feel your parents would have received the book if they were to read it?
So I think my dad was a complex man, right? From an ego point of view, my dad would have been fucking delighted with how successful. Like I'd say like he would have been in AA right now. The first thing he would have said if he was sharing is that's my daughter. Like my dad, ironically, right? He was a complex man, and I'm still healing my relationship with my dad, despite the fact that he's been dead for a long time. Your parents never die. They die physically, but they live on in you always. And your relationship with them always keeps evolving, despite the fact that they're not here. But I think he would be extremely proud. Like, despite the fact that my dad was complex and did hurt me a lot, he also really wanted me to fly. Like he wanted me to heal, even in his own unhealed way. Like he wanted me to be better, you know, and he loved me, and he loved my son and my kids immensely. And so he wouldn't have a problem with me speaking about him or us. And I think he'd be extremely proud of me and the book. I'd say he'd be celebrating. Say up there somewhere he's in an AA meeting now with his friends, telling them all about me.
So what would you say to him today?
My dad? I don't know, you know, I'd love to know why he lied about certain things. Like I'd love to really understand, like I would love to know why, because he lied for no reason, you know, even up to the end of his life. And I'd really like to understand that. I don't know if he would know himself. So it's
sort
probably
of a protective mechanism.
I don't know. Like I've spoke about it a lot in therapy, you know, I don't know. So I'd like to know why. I'd also, that's probably all I'd ask him. My mum now, she wouldn't be happy. She was really proud of me now, you know, and it's funny, she never told me that. She told all the other people. So like I'd meet people even today who knew my mum over the years, and she was so proud of you. She'd talk about you all the time, but she never, like our relationship was very difficult. She was quite angry and violent towards me, verbally violent a lot, all the way. So I don't think she'd be happy that I've told the story. And that's why I did it when she was dead, because she you know, I don't think she would have been able to cope with it, honestly. But I think she would be proud of me. I know she was proud of me, but she wouldn't like it. And my family, you know, they don't all like it. You know, my eldest brother's, it's funny, he said to me, I'm blocking you on all social media now, apart from WhatsApp, because I still love you, but I don't want to see any of this. But he doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to think about it. You know, that's his choice. You know, I can see the effect of that on him. And that makes me sad, because I know what freedom is. But I also respect that that's his choice. So there's complex ideas in the family around it, but majority of them are proud.
It's difficult for you to have got to this point in your life where you're quite successful and happy, but then some of your siblings are not quite there?
It is. It like, I do think, why me? You know, I know why me in some ways because I've written about it, but I do feel like we all are bright, happy, vivacious kids. All of us, all five of us could equally be where I am today. And there's just opportunity loss and the consequence of trauma. Like, if I look back on who I was as a kid, you know, and I know psychology really well now, there's some kids that fare better because they have certain characteristics than others and the world responds to them differently. So like kids that are pretty and outgoing and grateful and intelligent, or demonstrate that, are more likely to have people respond to that and invest in them. I'm good at sport as well. That's another thing. And then, so like across my siblings, we had varying levels of that. And I think for me, the investment I got from teachers was particularly around the way I presented as well as a kid. But yeah, it is hard. It's really lonely, actually, to leave your family, because I left them through education. And then I, in some ways, left them in the choices that I have made for my life, in my life. So some of them I feel as if I used to think that I could save them as well, you know, but you can't save anybody else really. And that makes me sad. Like, I miss my brother, particularly my closest sibling, a lot. I miss him. I miss that, because when we were kids, like, all we had was each other, and he was my joy. Like, he was the joyful place for me to feel connected to somebody. And then now as an adult, that's completely gone because of his life and my life, and we're so distant. So that's really hard.
It's the most difficult part of the change, isn't it? Because you have to leave
people
behind.
I think people don't talk about that a lot when we talk about escaping poverty or changing your life. Like, you know, you don't fit anywhere really. Like, I'm really lucky that I met an amazing man, like, who was in recovery as well, and really committed to like healing as well, and us, you know, making a life together. So like, while I feel loneliness, like, I feel like the tree that I fell from is dead, but that I've created my own garden where I feel like I belong. And so I'm the tree now. We're the tree, and we're trying to create a new garden for me and my kids. And so I have a bond and a connectedness there. I don't know how I'd feel if I didn't have that as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I don't have the bond there anymore with my family of origin.
There's no connections.
Oh, there are. No, my brother Tony, like, we're connected. Like, he's sober. He's great. You know, there is with my older brother as well. Like, so we do, but it's harder with boys as well. We talked about this off air. You know, like. You know, like, I'm not going to... feelings, yeah. Like, they're to be slagging me, you know. Like, this, oh, here she is now with the tears or whatever, you know. But Tony's in recovery now, and he kind of is really in recovery, and he's getting it now. So that's lovely. It's like a blossoming of something that's historic. And we wouldn't have been close as kids. We would have fought the most, me and him, and not got on the most. And he didn't like me the most. So it's mad that we're developing that bond. But yeah, that is lonely. And it's a loss. And we don't talk about that loss. You lose your community as well, because you don't talk the same, and you don't work in the same job. And so there's this kind of thing of like, I still love you and they're still proud of me and I'm proud, but I can't sit in the coffee shop in the same way that I used to. I start spouting on about politics or some shit that they're not interested in, or vice versa. And so you kind of move to a space where you're like, where am I now? Like, because I'm also not middle class. Like, I don't belong fully in the academic space either, because I swear a lot, and I'd be happy to tell someone to fuck off if they annoyed me, which is not the norm. You're not supposed to do that. So yeah, there is a loneliness.
You should probably do that more often, actually.
Well, yeah, don't know. Might get sacked. Might get sacked.
So is this part of the process at the moment, trying to find your place, or have you found that place in your family?
No, I found it. Yeah. Like, me and Dave, like, I'm happy. Like, It's funny when people talk about my book, they go, award-winning lecturer, graduate from Trinity College, Dublin, as if that is my success. My success is to love and be loved. That's my success. Like, honestly, we wake up, me and Dave wake up every day. He puts his arm around me. We have a little spoon. He goes and makes me a coffee. I get up, try and maybe do a bit of yoga if I can, breathe for a minute, maybe put a song on. He gets ready for work, gives me a kiss, tells me he loves me. I get the kids up, bring Ty to school, shake Sean, you got college, get up, get up. My little grandson pops in, Nana, Nana. You know, that's my success. It's not something that I'm trying to achieve anymore. I've achieved it. It's there now. It's not an action that I have to work towards, which it was for a long time. And people who are in that position right now who might be listening, who are trying, like someday you're just going to wake up and it'll be there. It won't be a job anymore. It's like, oh God, I'm doing this, like, you know. So yeah, my success is the fact that I'm loved and I can love in abundance, and I feel freedom. There are shaky days, but I think all of us have them. I appreciate them as well. They remind me that, you know, that of who I am and where I come from. But yeah, I'm happy, and that's such a gift. I don't mean joyous, like I am a joyous person, but I don't mean like I'm walking around going, yeah, I'm fucking great. I mean
content.
I'm stable and content, and I'm loved. You know, the hardest thing about my childhood was feeling that nobody loved me and nobody saw what was happening. And now I know that people see and I'm loved. Oh, wow, that's amazing. What a fucking gift, you know. And that's been a hard journey, but I'm there.
And then to love yourself was probably the hardest part.
Yeah.
You sort of needed other people to love you, to feel loved.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's hard because I think I needed someone to agree to come on the journey with me. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, so when I met my husband, I was getting into really disastrous relationship. If a man was unavailable in a room, right, a light would shine on him and I'd be like, he's the one for me. Because like, that's, you know, what we feel about ourselves internally is what we attract in. That's not choice, by the way. We're not choosing that, okay? So it's not to vilify anybody who's in a bad relationship. You didn't make bad choices. I don't think that about people. But there is something innate that drives us towards what we think we deserve. And then I did this abstinence of a year, you know. I was like, went to therapy, did stay away from men. This was the recovery thing, you know. They're all bad. And then I met Dave, you know, and it was like, oh, you know, he's a good one. And he was available emotionally. And I was still healing though, you know, because you don't just self-love, you know, within a year, like it takes time. But also met someone who was also on a journey and was willing to like come with me on the journey. And that was, so like loving myself was part of allowing myself to be in a relationship with someone who was available and was willing to love and having boundaries and establishing them and growing with him and stuff like that. So I don't think I needed him to love myself. I think that choice was part of loving myself, to accept somebody who was available and caring and in a position to maybe be the perfect person for me.
Amazing. And the journey continues.
Yeah, 20 years happy. Hopefully he's not somewhere off now riding someone else in the hospital, because that thought's still there, you know. Yeah. But yeah, 20 years of trying to connect and stay connected. Like I truly believe like honesty is key as well to freedom. You know, like honesty in yourself, like living an honest, good life is a really important thing. Like to have thought of other people and to be honest and good in your actions if you can. Mm-hmm. Now there would be people who are listening, who will listen to this and go, she treated me like this, or she spoke to me this way. Like, you know, that's aspirational. But I genuinely think like you should leave people in a better position than what you arrived, and be conscious of that. And that honest living has been the key to kind of like healing as well and being better.
Yeah, I'm sure have you received some pushback from your writing, from your publication?
Not really. That's been the mad thing. Like I thought I'd get loads of shit, or I thought people would judge me. Like I write about abortion, and I write about criminality, and I thought like I'd get a lot of judgment, but I don't see it and I don't hear it. Like I honestly get at least 20 messages a day, every day, of people saying thank you for being honest, for teaching me, or for being a voice for me. So I haven't really had that much negativity, which is so kind and nice.
Great.
I got one really random marriage proposal from a guy in Texas who lived in a trailer. I did think about it for a while. When he said he lived in Texas, I was like, ooh. And then he said a trailer. I was like, oh, yeah. I have a house, it's fine.
There's probably a few of them out there. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then what next for you then? So you've got this book.
Yeah.
What's happening next?
So I think I'm going to write a second book, I think. Yeah, I am. I think. It's been weird. It's been like people call me an artist now, like other writers. So you're an artist. I'm like, I don't, am I? But I have things that I want to say. And so I'm writing a second book and it's called Hungry. And it's talking about like, the connection with my body and being a woman and the fracture of trauma and what that can do to that, and diets and self-love, self-hate, all this kind of stuff.
Is it completely about your journey, or are you
it's
bringing
biography?
in,
no, but it would be like I do bring in other, it's the same as Paul. It'd be the same. Mm-hmm. It'd be a story, my story, but in different things that are not in the book. But reflect
kind of about your healing journey more so.
Healing, but also some of the hard bits. So like I talk about relationships with men a lot more, sex and healing that, and it's called Hungry, and I'm working on that now. And then I am in talks about making a film of Paul. So I'm hopefully going to co-write screenplay for a film. I've been asked a good bit since it's been out, which is great, but I've always been a bit scared to do it. But recently I've been having conversations, and I kind of feel like if I can write the screenplay and be involved in it, then I would be comfortable to do it. And so that's probably in the next year. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on them two things in the next year.
Nice one.
Yeah. And I'm just going to go with it. Like there's a fear of like change in me as well. Like, cause I'm a lecturer, I'm an academic. This is the things that, and now I'm like, oh, am I a writer? Am I going to make a film? Is this a new thing? And the mad thing is, when I was a kid, this is the stuff I loved. I loved books, and I loved writing, and I loved plays. So I'm like, I'm actually probably going in the direction that I always wanted to go in as a person. So that's really nice.
You just leave it out there and see what happens. You don't force it. You don't.
You know what? I'm a great believer in like listening to how you feel about things. So like even with the film, people would have approached me, I'd have met them, and I'd be like, no, that person's, I don't care what your status is. I'm not money driven. Don't get me wrong. Like everybody loves a bit of money, but it's not the things that drive me. Like I think if I'm secure, like one of the great things about being poor is, right, it gives you this privilege of like, I know how to survive with nothing. So like, I'm not one of them. I'm not driven towards things. So that's powerful. And I never wrote the book for a film. So for me, it's like, how do I feel about a situation? And that's got me where I am. So I'm like, just keep doing what you're doing. And so I kind of feel my feelings and go, nah, not into that. Or yeah. It's like when you messaged me and I was like, will I do? Because I get loads of asks for podcasts. I've done a lot of them, but I'm like, I look and go, oh yeah, no, I will. I like that one. Or I don't like this one. So I just go with my instincts. Great for you.
Yes.
No, but you know what I mean? I go with my instincts on things. So, and it hasn't let me down so far. I'm happy, doing well. So I'm just going to keep going with it that way. Now, maybe like if someone comes in with £1 million offer, it might change me. I might come back and be completely different. I don't think so though.
Yeah.
Just,
No, don't lose yourself.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Another Eminem song.
Oh my God, I love that one. Well, it's just lose yourself.
Lose yourself. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You could add the don't in.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Katriona, thank you so much, not just for this conversation, but for writing your story, such an important story. And I think on reflection, being poor has actually made you rich in wisdom and knowledge and experience. And now you're sharing those riches with people in your life. You've got movements that are happening that have come from you that are helping people in underprivileged situations.
Yeah.
And again, the book is inspiring so many people.
Yeah.
And I look forward to the next one.
Yeah.
And so where can the listeners find you, reach out to you, get involved in your work, or know more?
So they can Google me and they'll get loads of links. So if they want to find me and find out what I do in Maynooth University, they can just look me up on the Maynooth. They can follow me on Instagram. I'm always Katriona O'Sullivan on Instagram, Katriona with a K. So that easily found that way, or just Google Katriona O'Sullivan Poor. And they can find out what I'm doing. I'm always posting all the crap on Instagram and sharing all the great stuff that I'm involved in there. And just to say thanks for what you're doing. You know, I think we didn't talk about a lot about men and their mental health, but I really think, you know, these conversations are so important that you're having around men feeling like they can talk and be open, you know, and it's a really important thing for young men, or all men actually, to feel like that they can share their emotions in the same way that I have that privilege. Like, I'm in some ways privileged enough to be just a woman who's been poor, because in some ways I'm allowed more so to explore that and express it and access services in ways that men are not. So I'm really glad that you're, you know, my story is not just a woman's story though. It really is, it transcends to men as well. And
for sure. Yeah. Because I've read the book myself and I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
It has had an impact on me.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Until I have you back in here after your next book.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Thanks, Gavin. Thanks a lot. Thank you.